Hi, I'm Cindy. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making sugar cookies, and the recipe is by Alton Brown, who I'm very fond of, and I even wore my Alton Brown apron today. So we're looking at 3 cups all-purpose flour. Yes, I use King Arthur. Yes, I fluff it up in the container before I scoop it into the measuring cup. 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, which helps make things rise. 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of soft unsalted butter. Now, the ugly truth is I don't always have enough unsalted butter in the house. So today I used 1 stick unsalted, 1 stick salted, and I softened them. And therefore I used less added salt. It was more like 1/8 of a teaspoon. So that's how I compensated. 1 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of milk, and then when I roll it out, I'll be using confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar. So that's the recipe, and it will be attached in the comments. So let's get started. I've already put the sugar and the nice soft butter into my mixing bowl. Now, as you all know, we're supposed to mix butter and sugar together for about 8 minutes. So no matter what the recipe says, that's what you're shooting for. Now I will stop it a couple times during the mixing to scrape down the sides, make sure that the butter's not all stuck into the blade. And I'll turn off the recording so that you don't have to listen to it making all that noise. So I'll be back in about 8 minutes. Hey there, time is up. We've done some scraping, we've done some mixing. One thing you can tell is that the butter seems to be a little bit lighter in color after it's mixed long enough. So I'm happy with this. And now I'm going to scrape it down a little bit and add the egg and the milk, because that's next. So we've got 1 tablespoon of milk, just like this, and it goes. We've got 1 beautiful egg from my chickies, nice orangish yellow color. That's going in. And also a splash of vanilla, because I put a splash of vanilla in almost everything. Mr. Alton Brown didn't suggest it, but I do. So let's mix this up. Oops, we'll get that later. Let's mix this up. And then once the egg looks like it's dissolved in better, we'll start adding the flour mixture, which includes the baking powder and a little bit of salt. I think Alton says something in the instructions about when it pulls away from the sides of the bowl. I don't know. I can tell when it's mixed sufficiently. There. Oh, that's starting to look pretty good. It's a bunch of chunks. You can hear that the mixer's working harder. So let's stop there and start scraping the sides. We're going to make sure that the butter is well worked into the dough. There's nothing worse than having a pocket of butter come out of nowhere. Anyway, I hope you can see what it looks like at this point. I'm going to scrape down the sides with the bowl scraper, of course. And then we're going to separate it into 2 balls and wrap each ball in wax paper. Now, we're going to stick this in the refrigerator for a while. And you're saying to yourself, why does it have to be refrigerated? Well, you don't want to go right from the mixing to the oven. This dough is too tender, if you will. It's very soft, very fragile, and chilling it makes it so much better to work with for rolling it out and for cutting out the shapes. You really want the dough to be chilled. And then when we go to bake it, there's an additional chill step there. I guess that's pretty good. So, another quick scrape through, making sure the butter is all mixed in. And then I'm going to put it on wax paper. There's a glob there. There's a glob here. I try to get more or less the same amount, but it really doesn't matter because they're going to get rolled and cut into shape, so it doesn't matter if one ball has more than the other. Just got to make sure that get it all out. Don't waste it. All right. I think I've got it. So now I'm going to wipe off the bowl scraper because it's got dough on it. And squish this up into a ball. You're not kneading it or anything. You're just putting it all together for convenience of wrapping it in the wax paper for the chilling. Got a few bits here and there. All right, so here's one. And here's 2. Okay, now what you want to do at this point is you want to leave your packages of dough in the refrigerator for 2 hours. But we don't want to wait 2 hours to come back to our video. So we're going to grab one that I made earlier that's had its 2 hours. And we're going to get out our rolling mat and our rolling pin. Now this is the rolling pin that has the little circle so that I can roll things out to a certain height. And for this dough, I do it at 1/6 of an inch. If you don't have a rolling pin like this, oh well, use your whatever rolling pin you have, obviously. But the most important thing, I think, is to get it the same thickness all the way over. And once you get a little experience, you can do that. I let this do the work for me. Now, before I roll out the dough, I got to put something on the surface. And for these cookies, it's powdered sugar. You're probably thinking flour. No, powdered sugar. And this is a little bowl of sifted powdered sugar. It works really well. If you keep using flour, eventually the dough gets tough. Well, the powdered sugar doesn't make the dough tough. So roll it out. I take about half of it, more or less, to start. And since it's been in the refrigerator for 2 hours, I'm going to give it a little squeeze with my fingers so that I can roll it out. If I'd been smart, I would have taken it out of the refrigerator 10 minutes ago, and that way it definitely would have softened up just enough to roll it out. The idea is that we're going to take a baking sheet. Let me grab my baking sheet. It's right here. And we're going to roll out the dough and cut out the cookies and bake them. Simple, right? It is. Might need a little more powdered sugar so that my rolling pin doesn't stick. But let's roll out this dough. Meanwhile, I have some cookies that I baked a little while ago that we're going to look at. And I also have some cookies that are ready to go in the oven. Now the trick is, after you roll it, after you cut them out, put them on your baking sheet, you want to pop it into the freezer for 10 minutes. It is a great idea because the cookies hold their shape. They're just chilled and just hard enough that they'll stay together. And if you've got some intricate pattern in your cutout, you're not going to lose it, which I've had happen. So I have cookies that are in the freezer right now. They have been in there for about 8 minutes. All right, here's my dough. You can see that, half of the ball didn't make a heck of a lot because this is controlling the thickness. But I've got some heart-shaped cookie cutters. I'm going to take a heart-shaped cookie cutter and make cookies. I stick the bottom in some powdered sugar. That way it doesn't stick to the dough. Again, if you've got a cutter with lots of little intricate edges, sometimes they stick to the dough. Here's a little bit different one. I'm doing hearts there. So I use my offset spatula to scoop underneath it. And here is the shape that I just cut out. I'm putting it on the pan. Now when I have a pan full and they've gone into the freezer for 10 minutes, they're ready to get baked. And they bake at 375 for 8 minutes. Now my oven, I know my oven. You have to know your oven. If your oven runs hot, you might need to do 7 minutes. If it's not as fast, the temperature doesn't get quite as hot, you may have to do 9 minutes. But I know my oven, I know 8 minutes is just right. So I'm going to grab the tray that I stuck in the freezer. Here it is. Here's the hearts. They're going to get popped into the oven. And I have a timer going over there, so I'll know when 8 minutes are up. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm not going to cut out any more cookies right now because I want to show you about decorating them. So The frosting that I use for cookies is very simple. And again, I will have it included in the comments. But it's 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1 teaspoon of corn syrup, I said teaspoon, tablespoon. The directions will be correct. 1 tablespoon of milk, a dash of vanilla, and my whisk. So we're going to add these things together. And whisk them up. This makes a frosting. I mean, it's not a buttercream, obviously, because there's no butter in here, for one thing, but it makes a nice cookie frosting because it does harden up well. Buttercream frosting does not harden up well, even when you put a real thin layer on a cookie, which I do use buttercream frosting sometimes. But this will make a nice firm layer on top of your sugar cookies. And look, it's not blending well, so I'm going to grab a little more milk. At least everything is convenient in this kitchen. You got to be willing to adjust as need be. Now I could use a mixer if I wanted to, but usually this comes together really easily with just my whisk if you get enough liquid. And again, I'm one of those people who aren't afraid to add. And if I added too much and it got runny, I'd sift a little more powdered sugar in. Here, just a splash more milk. All right, now we have some frosting. And I made a little more frosting earlier and tinted it rose pink. If you are going to be working with colors, I recommend the Wilton gel colors, and that's what this is. Rose pink. You check the cookies in the oven. They're good. A couple more minutes. So we've got some pink frosting. We've got some white frosting. Now, at this point, you've got options. You can either put the frosting in a piping bag and pipe it onto the cookies. These are my already baked and cooled cookies over here. There. You could take a cookie and just dip it into the frosting just to get the top. And I didn't do a very good job dipping. You can see I only got half. So I'm going to take another offset spatula. This one has more of a pointed end. And I'm going to spread it around. There. I could take this cookie, dip it into the white frosting, and then I could use some of the pink and kind of streak it. How's that look? Not bad. I could take another cookie, again, dip it into the pink, and let it run off. This one I really got in there good. So this one's really, really pink. And you know, set them on a cooling rack so that the frosting can drip off the sides if need be. So anyway, here is our cutouts. We made them, we chilled them, we rolled them out, we cut them into shapes, we chilled them for 10 minutes, we popped them in the oven. And here they are, another batch ready to get frosted. I hope this video was good for you. I hope you learned. I hope you had fun watching me do all these crazy things. So look in the comments for the recipes. And thanks for joining me here today in my bitchin' kitchen. All right, take care. Bye-bye.